Welcome to mypresidenttrump.us. I'm Tim Anderson. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Now, the Democrats are screaming that Donald Trump misused his political power to investigate his rival. Let's look at history real quick. Donald Trump hired a man named Paul Manafort. He was a professional political consultant. That showed that Donald Trump was serious about being president. What did the Democrats do? Joe Biden's in charge of the Ukraine. The United States government pressured the Ukraine to investigate Paul Manafort right after Trump hires him. They find out that Paul Manafort was paid tens of millions of dollars for other political campaigns. Turns out that he didn't report to the IRS. That scandal forced Trump to fire Paul Manafort. That hurt his campaign. It also led to, under the Mueller investigation, Manafort being prosecuted for tax evasion. They arrested him, they would not give him bail, and they put him in solitary confinement thinking it would break him and he would turn on Trump. Truth is, you hire someone as your campaign manager, they're your campaign manager for a couple of months, there's a scandal, you have to fire him. Paul Manafort wasn't in a position, or was he in a position long enough to find out if Donald Trump was dirty or not, because if you hire someone to be a campaign manager, you're not going to sit there and tell him your deepest, darkest secrets. You hired him to run the campaign, and that was his job, and that's what he did. In the course of that, there's no dirt on Donald Trump, but they're squeezing him hard. He's been given a multi-decade sentence, and he is being forced to serve that in solitary confinement, which is a form of torture. So the Democrats not only started a politically motivated investigation into Paul Manafort in the Ukraine, which is abuse of their political power, if you believe what the Democrats are saying today. If you don't believe it's abuse of political power, it's fine. Manafort was guilty, and he was convicted because he did not report tens of millions of dollars to the IRS, nor did he pay taxes on it. Fine. Now, Donald Trump sees a lot of frame jobs coming from the Ukraine. The Steele dossier, which is the entire basis of the Russian frame job. And it was a frame job because there was no evidence that Donald Trump colluded with the Russians. All that comes from a Hillary paid for dossier from a Russian, not a Russian, but a British spy, and it's called the Steele dossier. She used more than $10 million of her money and the Democratic National Committee's money, and they funneled $650,000 of that money to hire Nellie Orr, the wife of Bruce Orr, a Department of Justice top official. The guy in charge of looking at Hillary Clinton's emails got $650,000 from Hillary Clinton. I call it a bribe. It is a bribe. Bruce Orr did not report it on his financial disclosures, and Bruce Orr recommended that Hillary Clinton should not be prosecuted for her 33,000 federal felony obstruction of justice counts because they subpoenaed her emails. 10 days later, she bleach bitted and destroyed 33,000 of them. That's 33,000 federal felony counts of obstruction of justice. But guess what? The guy whose wife took $650,000 from Hillary Clinton did not think deleting emails after they were subpoenaed was a crime. Let's go back to abuse of power, though, in the Ukraine. The Ukrainians were pressured by the Obama administration into investigating Manafort. They used an Ukrainian CrowdStrike, which is a Ukrainian IT security company, to come up with the Russians hacked the DNC server. I don't think the Russians hacked the DNC server because the DNC never turned it over to the FBI. The FBI is not saying that the Russians hacked the Democratic server. The Ukrainian company called CrowdStrike is saying it. The FBI, the CIA, none of them have physically looked at, touched, or were given access to the server. The Ukrainians were. So the whole Russians hacked the DNC server for Trump comes from the Ukraine, not the FBI. Now the media knows that, but they don't tell you that. When they say that the Russians hacked the server, that is Ukrainian misinformation. That's Ukrainian propaganda. If you ask those reporters or journalists, yellow journalists, they're Democrat, the Democratic journalists know that the FBI never looked at the server. The FBI was never given the access to the DNC server, which they asked for. The FBI was denied. They had this Ukrainian company do it. So the Ukrainians are saying that the Russians hacked on behalf of Donald Trump. The person who probably did it was a guy named Seth Ridge. Seth Ridge was an IT guy for the Democratic National Committee, and he was a Sanders supporter. He saw that Sanders was being screwed out of the Democratic nomination, that Hillary had it rigged. He took the relevant information, he put it on a flash drive. He sent that flash drive to WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks was verifying that information, which allowed them, the DNC, to know that something was up. And all of a sudden, Seth Ridge was shot in the back of the head walking home from the bar. The DC police called it a robbery, but no money was taken, his cards weren't taken, his phone wasn't taken. So he just got popped and nothing was taken. But that's a robbery in DC. Who shot him? I don't know. I just know that he's the most likely hacker of the DNC, and he's dead. Dead men tell no stories. Then the Russians were framed for what he did. And then Trump was linked to the Russian frame job, which meant Trump colluded with the Russians. Seth Ridge wasn't a Russian. He was an American, and he was a Sanders supporter. That's your leaker, not the Russians. But the Ukrainians said it was the Russians, and now you can't investigate. We cannot get to the bottom of that because it's okay for the Democrats to get an investigation on Paul Manafort, but it's not okay for Trump to investigate CrowdStrike, the organization that framed him for Russian collusion. It's not okay for him to look at what the Ukrainians did in investigating Paul Manafort. It's not okay for Trump to look at Joe Biden. There's a video that anybody can look at. Joe Biden bribes or brags about getting the prosecutor in the Ukraine fired. He held up $1 billion of American aid because this prosecutor had to get fired. Now, the prosecutor was about to interview Joe Biden's kid, who got he got a bribe contract. Because his dad was Joe Biden, the natural gas company gave him over $3 million to be on their board. And because he was on the board, his dad got the prosecutor looking at the company and him fired. The prosecutor was also looking at George Soros. That $1 billion getting the prosecutor fired got Soros off the hook, got Joe Biden's kid doing the deliverables, and hey, fantastic. $1 billion of U.S. aid can really get a lot of people out of trouble, and that's what Joe Biden used it for. Biden took bribes. Trump wants to look into it, so they're going to impeach Trump. When Trump said he wanted to drain the swamp, bribery is a main part of the swamp, so Trump tries to look into bribery, and they're going to impeach him for it. Let's see how that plays in 2020. Remember, this is a democracy. The Democrats don't accept our democracy by not accepting the results of the election. So the Democrats are the threat to the democracy. And right now, their whole frame job and their abuse of power in the 2016 election is going to be investigated now. That's why they're going batshit crazy, is because they have to cover their tracks. And the more they scream, the more you know they're hiding something. So Trump is looking into what the Democrats did in the Ukraine, and the Democrats want to impeach him for it. Pretty swampy. So if you did nothing wrong, investigate. And also remember, please remember, everybody in the media, everyone in the Democratic Party said that if Donald Trump fired Robert Mueller, he had to be impeached. You can't obstruct justice and fire the prosecutor. You have Joe Biden on tape bragging about getting a prosecutor fired and using $1 billion in U.S. aid to get a prosecutor fired. If it was wrong for Donald Trump to fire Bob Mueller, then it was wrong for Joe Biden to get the Ukrainian prosecutor fired. If you don't believe in equality, here's your opportunity to show it. What Biden did was wrong. What they threatened Trump, but Biden did it. Trump never did it. Mueller was allowed to finish his report. The Ukrainian prosecutor wasn't, because Joe Biden fired him. You're watching mypresidenttrump.us. This is an opportunity for the American people to say, we tolerate bribery or we don't. The Democrats took bribes. The Democrats use their political power to interfere in the Ukraine. Trump's investigating it. You have an opportunity in a democracy to decide what kind of country you want. Remember, you get the government you deserve. Trump is investigating political interference in the Ukraine and a frame job into himself. I think the American people need to know, or deserve to know, where the Russian collusion allegation came from. The false Russian collusion allegation. Because if there was any evidence, it would have been in the Mueller report. But it wasn't. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. My name is Tim. I run mypresidenttrump.us. I'm a political consultant and the unofficial spokesman for Donald Trump. Basically, I wanted the press secretary job. I didn't get it, so now I do this channel. Thank you. Thank you for watching, and have a great day. Thank Donald Trump for sacrificing a billionaire lifestyle to be our president and to put up with all of this. Remember, Trump had a fantastic life. A multi-billionaire, rich, famous, everything you could possibly want. He felt that he owed the United States for the opportunities that he's had. Therefore, he sacrificed that billionaire lifestyle to run for president, ran the presidency, and now, man, his life has got to be so much more aggravating than it was 5 years ago. Think of Donald Trump's day 5 years ago before he became president or ran for president and what it's like now. The country's better off. Our tax rate's lower. There are 6 million more jobs because Donald Trump sacrificed his billionaire life to become our president. There's less regulations, and I think the country is better off. More than 1 million African Americans now have jobs that didn't before Donald Trump ran for president. That is strictly due to his sacrificing his billionaire lifestyle to put himself in this shitstorm of the presidency. False allegations, framed for Russian collusion, called every name in the book. I mean, his life is so much harder now, and I just thank God that he was willing to sacrifice what he had to do what he's doing for us. Secondly, it's amazing that he's tough enough to do it, and I love the fact that the Republicans now have a fighter. This guy won't back down, and how the Democrats don't learn to not pick fights with him is just incredible. The Democrats are just natural bullies, but they're running into somebody that won't back down, and I think it's fantastic. Once again, Donald, thank you for being our president, and thank you for being my president. It's an amazing sacrifice you've done, and I just want to say that some of us, me in particular, really appreciate it. You're watching mypresidenttrump.us. I'm Tim Anderson. Thank you.